Good morning. I just barely got the Friday episode uploaded last night. I completely forgot about it until yesterday at about supper time, but well. Oh, yeah, it was Father's Day yesterday. Yeah, my wife, well, she didn't go out and buy me something just because I had some store credit at a place I was wanting to go to, so I just went and got my own Father's Day present, but I got some miniatures and just had a nice relaxing day. My daughter didn't nap when she usually does, and I was just sitting back playing some video games, and she was tired, so I sat her on my lap, and then she just fell asleep right there. Got to spend a little bit of time with her just falling asleep on my lap and just leaning back playing some games, and I thought, yeah, that's how I like spending Father's Day. We went and saw my family at a family reunion the day before, and it was good, but when you have a lot of family, you sometimes forget some people's names, and it's always a little awkward because you don't want to stop and ask them their name again when they remember yours, but I remembered most everybody's name was there. But yeah, we were looking, and they had the family members who organized it had a large family tree, and so they kind of had everybody in the family up on this tree. And it's a lot of people, because it was it was the family reunion for my mom's parents. They're passed by now, but it was for their kind of family, which was, so it's my grandma and all her siblings and their families, and then all their kids and their kids, and so on and so forth. But it's a lot of people. I like kind of seeing that kind of, you can just see how many people you have around you when you zoom out and you see a big old family like that. It's nice to kind of come together and see each other, because I feel most of the family wasn't there, but I feel it's hard to remember who all is in your family sometimes. At least it is for me, because I have that was like out of great grandparents. My let's see, so on my mom's side, her grandparents, I don't know how many kids they had in total. I think in total they had like 12 or something. So I think one had 5, one had 7. I can't remember for sure though, because my grandpa's side of the family have really good reunions. So I don't know that side as well. But the other side, my dad's side, I know they have a lot as well. And just from my dad's parents, there's like 50, something like that. It's a lot. So I definitely think it's going to be interesting when my daughter grows up and all the distant cousins that she'll have. I remember we would go to family reunions when I was younger, and yeah, I mean, I was just a kid, so I didn't think much of it other than just trying to have fun with the cousins I did know. But I always met like 2 new cousins every time we went, which was every other year. So but yeah, a lot of my family lives in the same area we do. And then a lot of them are spread out, but not too wide an area, so it ends up being a lot of people kind of in the same general area. And so sometimes I'll just randomly be somewhere and run into somebody I'm distantly related to, but I don't know if that's how it is for everybody, because I've met a few people who do not meet up with their family much at all, and are only children of only children, because I guess your family can get stay the same size about, or even get smaller over time. It's interesting, because I know my family, my parents, they had 4 of us, but so far my wife and I are the only ones who have a kid, which I think that my little sister is definitely going to have kids. I don't know how many, but I know she'll have some kids. I'm still thinking or hoping that my older sisters have kids, because I love having a kid, and I definitely think they would enjoy it. I think it's 100% worth it, but I know they might not, or they might decide they don't want to, so that's fine. But I definitely think that a lot of people these days are overly cautious and afraid of having kids. It seems like people are just worried that they're never going to be able to afford it too, and I 100% get that, because I thought we would never be able to afford it until we had a kid and then realized it's not as bad as it seems. But I think one of the reasons it's so hard is because everybody pushes for both parents to work these days, and that's hard on the whole family. I mean, we grew up, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and that was great for us. But I know a lot of people didn't. These days, especially, less and less people are staying home. And I really think that should be more important. Should really be subsidized by the government in some way. Like, it's the most important job there is, and yet people act like you're doing nothing, so you don't need to get paid. And I really think that if there were ways of helping out stay-at-home moms and families whose either parent really, but if either parent stayed at home, it'd be great if the government could help out a little bit. Like, that's the whole point of the government, is to provide infrastructure and help ensure that the correct things are prioritized. But I think we really need to prioritize parents more, because it's hard to have a kid, and insurance is terrible these days. But hopefully it'll get better soon. Anyway, that's all the time I have for now. And we're back. So, that was another long morning. And once again, I have forgotten anything I said. I feel like that is becoming a theme and a rather repetitive phrase. So maybe I should stop mentioning it every time, but it's just a little difficult. You know, I started making this podcast just because, and now I'm already feeling like I want to make sure it's good, but I guess it never was, so it doesn't matter too much. I'm not gonna try and go out of my way to kind of fix any problems, just because. By driving on the wrong side of the road almost. And now I'm stuck behind a long trailer. Oh. Yeah, that's just one of those days I'm having trouble finding stuff to talk about. But it's always gonna be a few days like that. And somebody's crashed on the road. What in the world? Oh, there's a lot of construction. Okay, and I just am having a hard time concentrating right now, I guess. Oh, that's bound to happen eventually, and hopefully it won't be too much. interruption. Anyway, I don't know what I was talking about still. It's hard to think and drive at the same time often. Oh, but it's good to focus more on driving, I guess, rather than more on thinking. Oh, I don't know about any of y'all, but sometimes I just think, and I enjoy thinking, but I don't do it as much as I used to. You know, in school, whether it was high school, college, or earlier, there were just some times where you get a little bored and you just daydream a bit. And I definitely used to do that more than I do now. I don't really daydream as much anymore. I just kind of am always a little busy, or if I'm not busy, I'm tired, and don't have that daydreaming as much. I don't even remember kind of what I would daydream about. You know, it just kind of randomly comes up and things just randomly pop into your head. I guess when I was younger, I was a lot more easily distracted rather than focused on things. And I think also just I get so busy these days that it's hard to just not be doing much of anything at some points. Oh boy. But I do think that I just keep losing my train of thought over and over again today. I don't know what it is. But, anyway, it's gotten harder for me to just kind of, not even just daydream, but just kind of go off on a separate tangent as easily. So I feel like I've enjoyed doing that on this podcast a bit, because it's nice to just kind of wander down different paths of thought, consider different things. That just randomly makes me think about there's that super famous poem about paths by Robert Frost. I don't remember the entire thing, but every time somebody says something about paths, I just think of that poem, and not the actual poem, but just not the words of the poem or the meaning, but the poem itself. It's weird how you remember things like that. You remember famous things and things you've heard multiple times, not necessarily as the items they're meant to be, but more the mention of them. And it's kind of like how pop culture references eventually kind of turn into a reference to a reference, and to the point where it's more entertaining to bring the item up than to actually discuss it. And a lot of things I feel like get that way, and it's weird because it's like Romeo and Juliet is such a big reference that people don't even remember the original play a lot of the time. And it's a tragedy about young people who die, and it is not a very good love story at all. They fall in love immediately, but it's you're not really rooting for them that much when you read the real thing. It's you're just seeing all these lives fall apart because of prejudice, and that's what it's more about, is kind of the prejudice and bigotry of these families tearing apart the lives of their children. But it's like people just think, oh, love story, and so it gets kind of touted as this love story, and more modern remakes of it are often like a happy love story at the end. But it's like the original one was not all that. It was not happy at all, really. Like, it was a big tragedy, which is kind of the point of it. But it's one of those where it's like, yeah, the reference has become a reference of love, especially young love, and like kind of forbidden love in some ways, but it's like a romantic reference now, whereas it definitely was not originally intended to be that. But I feel like there's a lot of things that kind of get that way. I don't know what all of them are exactly, but you know, it also kind of brings to mind references and like kind of things you say in literature that a lot of people know, but it's gotten to the point where it's hard to kind of get a good definition of them because they're just pronounced like Occam's razor. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that phrase all the time. Occam's razor. I heard it for years and years and years, and I did not know what it meant at all. Like, I was very confused when it would be brought up because I did not understand the actual like thing that it is. And Occam's razor is the literary idea that the most simple solution is usually the correct one. And like, I think it's logical, I don't remember what it's called, like it's a logical tool or something, and it's true in real life. Like, usually whatever's the simplest explanation is probably the most likely. But you know, it's one of those things where everyone always said it over and over, and I never actually knew what it meant. And I feel like there's a lot of things like that, especially around like literature and poetry, where people kind of use these words and phrases to refer to things without ever explaining what they are, and it's real easy to just get lost and not be able to keep up if you don't have a broader understanding of the base topic. Well, that's all I have time for now. So maybe I'll remember that. Maybe I won't. We shall see. Well, I was thinking about waiting until I got gas, but I think that I'm just gonna continue this through getting gas, and you'll get a little extra podcast today. Although I might have to pause it if it's too busy. Anyway, I do remember that I was talking about, you know, literary devices and kind of references becoming referential unto themselves in a way that kind of transforms the original meaning and takes out some of the context. But I realized I saw this somewhere, and I don't know where, but it's like a weird word for it, but a true word, the memification of ideas. And it's just like turning it into a very simple little kind of one-liner idea, as opposed to a full, realized, intricate, detailed thing. And it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of to the detriment of the original message, but I think it just happens anyway, and it's kind of something that's unavoidable, really. And you're always going to have it with any kind of more popular item. And so it's kind of weird, but you know, when you see it once, you kind of start seeing it everywhere. More common over time. The whole idea is also that once you kind of put something out there to the world, it doesn't really stay here. It becomes kind of a property more or less of the public consciousness. And so it's something I've kind of thought about, you know, recording this podcast. Just because I say something on here doesn't mean it's going to be kept in the context that I originally said it. I've seen it before with just people have trouble with clips of them saying something and get taken completely out of context. It may seem like they said one thing when they really said something else. You know, it's kind of weird living in an age where that happens so easily. Because I know I've already said some things that people are gonna, like, people could take out of context and use to frame me in negatively. But I guess that's just kind of part of I'm so sorry for all the noise. About the gas station. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. There's a bunch of big trucks driving by all the time. Yes, it's kind of part of that idea that once you publicize your words and your words, they aren't really your own anymore. You no longer have sole discretion on how they're viewed. Back to what I was saying. It's just something that I have thought about and that I've seen kind of public figures talk about. Like, I don't pay much attention to politics, really. Well, I try not to. Recently, it's very difficult not to pay attention to politics, it seems. And I'll probably get into my political views and all at some point. But I just... baseline is I don't like either side when it comes to American politics. I disagree almost completely with both of them. So... anyway. What I was... originally saying is, yeah, I've kind of seen some more public figures talk about it, but the public figures that I know and listen to are not politicians. It's YouTubers and streamers and other kind of content creators on the internet. And a lot of them have just talked about how things they say get taken out of context and people get mad about different aspects of their work or their opinions, and they don't really kind of differentiate as much. Like, people sometimes hear one tiny thing you say and use that to determine their entire attitude towards you. And I think that's become a real problem in modern society. It's having these little snippets of information that are really boiled down to the point where they're almost meaningless, and the original intention and context behind each quote is lost. And it's not just a problem in literature and public figures, but even in individuals' lives. Like, if somebody says something that somebody else doesn't like, sometimes they'll just completely ignore the other person from that point on, because they just say, oh, you have a different belief than I do on this? Well, I don't really trust you anymore. And it's just become a real issue because people are getting more and more divided into these smaller and smaller camps where they can't agree with anybody on anything who doesn't agree with them on everything. And issues that most people agree on are just becoming kind of pushed to the side, because if you agree with somebody on something, you start arguing over something completely irrelevant to the topic in question. Everybody agrees these days that health insurance is overpriced and ridiculously expensive in the US. Nobody except the insurance companies is happy with the current state of affairs. But rather than try and fix it with some program, no matter if it's a government paid or not, it just becomes a devolving issue into different terms of, oh, you're a socialist, oh, you're a hypocrite, and everybody just calling each other names, when we all want the price of health insurance to go down. But nobody can even formalize a discussion because it just devolves into name calling and spouting out completely irrelevant beliefs from either side, to the point where we're unable to make progress on something that's a real issue in this country and everybody agrees is an issue. But it's just this massive back and forth about just people's personal lives at some points, because they don't agree 100% on a single policy, instead of kind of finding the middle ground and coming together. And that's reflected again and again throughout different policies. And just people have made such big deals about individual issues that it's becoming increasingly divergent in terms of the opposite sides on things. Because something, for example, like gun control, whatever your opinions are on it, everyone agrees that gun violence is rising and it is not a good thing. But just so many people have taken up either side, where it feels like half the people are saying all guns should be banned under all circumstances and the Second Amendment was a mistake, and the other half are saying that there should be no rules and regulations on guns whatsoever, and anyone who tries to regulate any kind of firearm is going to take over the nation and try to control you through force. There's no middle ground conversation anymore about reasonable regulation, because it used to not be a regulation. There used to be no regulations on automatic weapons. That had to be implemented in law, because automatic weapons did not exist, so they were de facto included under the Second Amendment until a further law was passed expanding regulations and defining more clearly the purpose of the Second Amendment. And whether you think automatic weapons should or shouldn't be legally allowed for private ownership is kind of ridiculous, because you could make the same argument about explosives. And RPGs, or rocket-propelled explosives, tanks, artillery. Like, at what point does the right to bear arms at what point is it overruled by public safety? Because there are going to be some people out there who think that every single citizen should have the right to own a fully functional and operational tank. I am not one of them. I think there are reasonable limits that need to be placed, but at the same time, I own a gun and I want to own more guns. And I think it's ridiculous to suggest that we should restrict the ownership of weapons in more than just a few ways. But I do not agree with the people who want to completely stop adding restrictions and think that any future restrictions are above and beyond the original intent of the amendment. Like, there has to be more middle ground, and I find myself in that position more and more these days, where I just think both sides are being run by complete idiots who are just purposefully avoiding the actual question and increasingly just spouting ridiculously extreme viewpoints to try and get more attention on different forms of media. And like, there's the old adage in reporting, if it bleeds, it leads. Meaning that when you show violence and bloodshed on the news, you are going to have more attention devoted to it. And the public will watch something that's more visceral and violent. And I think that is true, and that has kind of driven politics these days, which is a real problem. Because politics should not always be about the hot button issues that are going to get you all the attention and make sure you have plenty of funding. Politics should mostly be about the mundane, everyday issues that are facing people where there's actual problems. Because most people are not going to encounter a problem with gun ownership or gun violence, no matter which extreme is taken. Most of the time, that's not going to be an issue for people. What is going to be an issue for people is the affordability of sending your kids to school, the affordability of healthcare, whether or not you'll be able to retire on a normal salary, the ridiculous inflation rates that are going on, just the low stagnating wages. Like, those are issues that everybody is facing. And for some reason, they're the ones that are being ignored because they don't bring up enough controversy to stir public opinion in favor of somebody. And that's the problem with short duration leadership positions. Anybody that has to be re-elected is going to be more in tune with public opinion than with problems that are actually facing the public. Which, the problem is that the only alternative is long-term public officials, which can easily become oligarchies and dictatorships. There's no easy solution to having some very short-term politicians in charge, because if you don't have short-term, then you have rulers who are going to be able to do whatever they want and not be under threat of getting removed from office as easily. But if you go short term, just all they care about is making people mad and stirring up the pot so that people don't forget about them and people think they're really important. Oh, and it's just become where politicians looking important is more important to them than their ability to actually influence the well-being of their constituents. Which, that's just the main problems I'm seeing these days. I am so tired of politics because of it, and I want all the hot button issues to just go away so we can actually talk about something that is a little more common sense. I just get so frustrated these days because everyone's wrapped up in their own business and forgets to look out for what their neighbor needs. Well, sorry for all the politics talk if you don't like that, but it comes up. Back to part 4. Oh, I promise I can count. Well, I finished. I know I'd mentioned that I was listening to an audiobook, Ghost Town Living by Brent Underwood, and I finished that today at work while I was doing some work. I finished the last hour of it, and it is really good. Like, I just feel like it a lot of the things he talks about in that book, just the feelings he's had and the different kind of aspects of life that he's seen revealed through his experience there, have like really resonated with me in a way I did not expect. Because, I mean, I've never done anything very adventurous like that, and I've never really been in such an extreme position as he has at multiple points as highlighted in the book, which I do recommend reading or listening to that book because it's a really good one. But yeah, I've never been in any of the kind of situations like that or had myself tested to that limit, yet I've still felt a lot of the same kind of just feelings about life in general that he brought up. And I guess it kind of affirms it in a way. It made me really get into the book and really appreciate all the different things that were said in it, but at the same time, like, it makes me feel that, you know, people aren't really all that different, and everything kind of seems rather self-evident in a way, which I do think is definitely true. Like, I mean, as a Christian, in the Bible it's said that God's work is self-evident throughout the world around us. And so, like, that's true there. And the guy who wrote this book, he has never claimed publicly to be a Christian, so I figure he's not. And the wording in his book makes it seem like he was raised kind of with a Christian background, but doesn't currently attribute that to himself, at least. So, I don't know whether or not he is, but a lot of those same kind of thoughts and feelings are reflected, even though he isn't a Christian himself. He sees the world around him and the same ideas and beliefs still come up, even if you don't put them through a Christian framework. Anybody can look at the world around and just see the beauty in it and find the fellowship with community and nature and see the lessons to be learned there. But I just really appreciated all the things he had to say about a wide variety of subjects, but I just felt really connected to him, and I think that there is a kind of commonality in a lot of human experience that makes it easy to kind of associate with others. And it's not as hard as you think to kind of find common ground between people who may not have as much common experience. But I just really enjoyed that and thought it's definitely something I'd recommend. But I know in the last segment I was talking about, how I feel so separate actually from kind of people's political beliefs, but I really think it isn't that we all believe extremely different things, because everybody thinks that they're a good person. You're not going to find very many people, if any, who are going to tell you that they're not a good person. Everybody thinks they're doing the right thing, or at least that what they're doing is fair, considering the world around them. Nobody's going to... If you think of the worst person you know, they think of themselves as a good person more than likely. And they think that they're doing the right thing based on how they were raised and the personal history that they have. They feel that what they're doing is right, no matter how much you hate it. We all come from somewhere where we think that we're doing good. And so attacking people for what they believe and trying to insult them for thinking in the way they do and claiming that there must be something wrong with them to think that way is never going to gain you political favor, is never going to advance your cause among anybody. Because if you try to appeal to people by saying that they're idiots for believing a certain way, all you're doing is making them think even more the way they already do. And if you're trying to appeal to them by saying somebody else is an idiot, you're not realizing it. But if you try to appeal to a Republican by saying Trump is an idiot, you shouldn't listen to him. Well, if they agree with Trump on a subject, any subject, and you claim he's an idiot, then they're gonna think you're calling them an idiot too. Like, I do not like Donald Trump, and I don't agree with him on a lot of things. In fact, I'd hazard a guess and say I don't agree with him on almost everything. But I also didn't agree with any of the other candidates for presidency in the last election on almost anything. So I just did not vote, because I felt like there wasn't a single good option. And I don't want to choose the lesser of two evils. I want to choose somebody who I genuinely support. I just feel like there's so many people who are trying to equate vastly different opinions because they disagree with them and want an easy solution to who they should hate. Whether it's trying to think of all Democrats as the same or all Republicans as the same, or saying that anyone who didn't vote voted for the other party, which both sides have done. It's just ridiculous because you're just trying to find people to hate rather than trying to find the ways you're similar. And it's just become this disease at the heart of American politics, where it's more important to have a communal hatred towards a person or a thing or an idea or an opinion. That's become the center point of political parties, not just smaller movements, but entire portions of the country have united around the hatred of some particular idea, where we used to find more commonality and bills used to get passed that were not opposed. These days you can't create a bill without throwing in just enough controversy to make sure at least a third of people are against it, if not barely getting it scraped by. Everyone seems to just try and upset as many people as possible. And I'm ready for a return to the days when it was more unique, where everybody felt like their own person and not just these big conglomerates, and where you could look at somebody and say, I agree with them instead of I hate the other guy. I think we got way too much hate in our politics now. So I hope anybody listening kind of takes that to heart and thinks that it's time to love your neighbor, not just agree that you both hate the same guy.